Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Mormonism Live. I'm Radio Free Mormon. My compañero over there is Bill Reel. How are you doing tonight, Bill?
Good. Other than big He-Man fan when I was a kid,
Yeah,
I started watching the new He-Man movie.
you did?
I gotta say, if it gets a 3 on Rotten Tomatoes, it couldn't even do that. It's a horrible movie, folks. If you grew up like me in the 1980s, you're a big fan of He-Man, skip the movie. It'll just ruin your whole nostalgia about what that was.
Oh my gosh. Now, you know that Rotten Tomatoes scores on a 100% scale. Are you talking a 3%?
Oh, it's really bad. So I'm about halfway through it. I'm going to finish it just for the sake of it, but I don't recommend.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I was more into Thundercats myself.
I know. Thundercats. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting. Give me sight beyond sight. I'm waiting for the Thundercats movie to come out.
That or Sectors.
I'm sorry, that or what?
Sectors. Don't you remember Sectors?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
We can move on from 1980s cartoons whenever you want. I
Let's
started
do that. And then we'll start talking about Alf. Okay. Or Wolverine. So anyway, everybody, we've got a great show tonight. It is called Black and Mormon Like Us. We've got an incredible panel here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring on two regulars, people that you've seen before, both here and elsewhere. We're going to bring on Summer Rain. Hello, Summer.
Hello, hello.
So good to see you. And Black Priesthood joins us as well from my neck of the woods. Hello, Black Priesthood.
Hello, everybody.
All right, so here's the lowdown on this. All right, I'm going to let everybody know what happened and why it is that you two are responsible for what's going to happen here tonight. Is that I was approached a couple weeks ago, whatever it was, by Summer and by Black Priesthood, and they had an idea about a panel discussion relating to certain issues and with a certain individual who is a TikTok person and has some renown as a TikTok person. And I thought, well, this sounds interesting. Let's do that. And then other people found out and they wanted to join the panel. And then another person wanted to join the panel. So I actually have 3 people on the panel in addition to Black Priesthood and Summer Rain. And this is going to be wonderful. Some are on TikTok, some are not. All of them will introduce themselves here in a minute. But I want to let you know that because of the fact that this idea came from Black Priesthood and Summer, and because of Summer's experience with co-hosting and hosting shows and podcasts, I had texted her saying, Summer, I'm going to tell the story. You know that, don't you? I said, Summer, out of the fact that you have had this experience, why don't you take the lead in the discussion on this panel discussion that we're going to be doing? And what you did was you immediately turned around. It was like less than a second. It was so fast I couldn't believe how fast you delegated this authority. The Black Priesthood, it's like, this is your gift of the Spirit, delegation.
That's right.
So Black Priesthood, after picking himself up off the floor, not knowing what hit him, and not seeing anybody else that he could delegate to. Anyway, he took the responsibility for this, and he's come up with a number of issues that he wants to talk about in this panel discussion. And we are going to be having Black Priesthood be a co-host tonight and the leader of the panel discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's a slideshow, and I've made a few video clips, did some technological stuff behind the scenes, the kind of stuff that Radio Free Mormon is known for, that high-tech guy, Radio Free Mormon. Mm-hmm. But other than that, that's pretty much how it's going to proceed tonight. Now, Black Priesthood, I'm handing the baton over to you, and we are ready to bring out the 3 special guests. So tell us how you'd like to proceed.
Sure, yes. So I believe you have the controls. You can bring on the guests, and what we can do is proceed by brief introductions, starting with Summer Rain. And then, let's see, Anne Laurie and Tara and Mariama.
Here's Terry
So
Herbert.
we will go in that order. Go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
And here's, and Anne Laurie. So we've got Tara Herbert. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
And Mariama, welcome to the show.
Hello.
It's the middle of the night over there in jolly old England, isn't it?
It is, yes, yes.
Thank you for making that sacrifice. You know, when Nemo shows up like that, he's always in his jammies and grousing about how late it is.
Oh, if I'd known jammies was an option, I might have you might catch me in my pajamas.
And also, Anne
Next
Laurie
time.
is joining us. Hi, Anne Laurie.
Hello.
All right. Go ahead. In whatever order you want, then, Black Priesthood.
Yes. So let's start with Samaran. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so to be fair, when I was asked to co-host, Black Priesthood was actually the connection for all of the young ladies on this panel right now. So I did not have a connection with you guys. I am so grateful you're here. And I love that Black Priesthood was able to connect with you guys and have you guys come on. So that is why Black Priesthood is actually the one I delegated to. RFM really put me out there. So my name is Summer Rain. I've been on here before. I grew up on the East Coast. My father's from the Deep South. My mother's from Trinidad and Tobago. They converted to the LDS faith when I was 3. So I grew up in the faith, but because of my West Indian roots and Black roots in the Deep South, I saw a lot of different cultures. Our brand of Mormonism was different than Utah Mormonism. I live in Utah now, and I work in politics. I'm a senior political advisor. And yeah, that's it. I started deconstructing about 2.5 years ago. And that's when I picked up some ruffians named RFM and Bill Reel, and they had me on my program, and it's been downhill from there. Went on that program, and that was
I am glad to hear that. That cheers my heart.
So that's it. That's me.
Thank you, Samaran. Hello, Tara. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tara Herbert. I grew up in South Jordan, Utah. I was adopted as a baby from Louisiana. So my parents who raised me adopted 4 kids, had 3 kids of their own, and they've grown up Mormon their entire lives. And happened to also be white. So I was really raised, even though I'm Black, as like a white Mormon in Utah. And now I have left the Mormon church for 6 or 7 years now. And I live in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan now. So yeah.
Wow.
Awesome. Thank you, Tara. And Lori.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anne Laurie. I grew up in Haiti. My parents were baptized into the faith 20 years before I was born. And I had a different type of Mormonism when growing up, because Haiti Mormonism is different than Massachusetts Mormonism, which is where I reside right now. However, I had a very uptight childhood where everything was banned because I had the strict culture of Haitian parents in Mormonism and a lot of rules on me. Right now, I am a veteran. I served for 5 years, and I joined the military specifically because I did not want to go to BYU, and that's how I left the church. And I'm 30 now, so it's been almost 10, 11 years, but it's still something that I deal with because my whole family is still Mormon. So.
Thank you. Hello, Mariama.
Hello.
Go ahead, please.
If you can't tell, I live in the UK. So I was born in Sierra Leone in West Africa, and my parents moved to the UK when I was 4, and my mum joined the church in the UK, literally within a couple of months of moving here. So I grew up Mormon, and interestingly, my dad is actually Muslim, which is fairly normal within Sierra Leonean culture. You might find that as a mixed faith marriage happens frequently. But grew up really conservative Mormon, served a mission. We went to church every Sunday without fail, pretty much. And I had lots of questions after giving birth to my son, about 6-7 years ago. And then I left eventually, about 6 years ago now. But my family is still pretty active, pretty Mormon.
Thank you. So my story, I was a convert to Mormonism from Catholicism. I served a mission to Los Angeles. while on my mission is where I found out from a stranger that we were teaching, who happened to ask me what I was doing on my mission. And I thought it was just a casual question. I asked him, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, from what I know of your church, they never allowed Black people, and you are the first one that I've seen, a Black Mormon. So I'm curious about your story. How did you end up here?" And that was a shock to my system because I had no idea. At that point, I had been in the church 2 years. I had no idea that Black people were not, in church history, were not accepted, embraced, and welcomed in Mormonism. And so at the end of tracting that day, I reached out to my mission president and I asked him to tell me more about the story. And immediately at the back of my mind, I just had a feeling that there's more to this story that I was not informed. And so for me, really, the betrayal of trust, the betrayal trauma, that's where it started. I did finish the 2 years at great pain to my mental health. And for about 25 years, I've been trying to reconcile this issue. And finally, right after COVID, I just decided that the nightmares I was having, I needed to accept that the church was not for me. And so once I did that, all of the nightmares, the dark dreams disappeared. But we can go into that story at another time. But yes, today, for me, what made sense, I really, until I accepted that the church was not for me. And so I went into this dissection of why. Why did I have such a visceral reaction about finding out that my kind was not accepted in Mormonism? So, but prior to that, after my mission, the only places you could find, this is how far back in church I have been, the only place you could find this kind of information that we're looking to present this evening were in institute libraries. There wasn't internet, at least it wasn't as we have it today. And so in between classes, I would venture into institute library that was annexed to the university. And that's when I started learning more about this history. I read the Journal of Discourses and all of the statements that were made by prophets and scholars underpinning this doctrine. And the more I dug into this, the more just devastated I became. And there was just no way for me to stay in the church after finding out the statements that they made. And what we're going to present this evening is just a fraction of the statements that have been made by church leadership. And let's take a journey through these statements. Okay. So this is, we're going to dive into how church experience, for us, at least speaking for me, how it has felt as what has been designated as a descendant of Cain or Ham in the church. There's a tendency now to dismiss and minimize this doctrine that has been so supreme and governed how this doctrine was exercised, was applied, and enforced. A lot of members want to just forget about it. And so what we're saying is, this is what it feels like, at least this is what it feels like to me as a Black member of the church. Okay, Anne-Laurie, could we ask you to read this? This is the crux of this doctrine. If you could read this for us, please.
Okay, yes. It's 2 Nephi 5, verse 21. And he had caused the cursing to come upon them, yea, even a sore cursing before their iniquities. For behold, they had hardened their hearts against him, that they had become like unto a flint. Wherefore, as they were white and exceedingly fair and delightsome, that they might not be enticing unto my people, the Lord God did cause the skin of blackness to come upon them.
What do you think of this, Anne Laurie? Is this a statement that you've been aware of in the church prior to now, or and what are your thoughts?
Oh my gosh, I've actually asked a missionary this in primary. I remember asking about they were white and exceedingly fair and delightsome, and what does that mean? What does that mean? Am I not white? Am I not beautiful or delightsome as I am? That was actually something when I was 12 years old that I asked the missionary, and he was white. He was clearly uncomfortable. He didn't have the knowledge to tell me, but that was when I was thinking about leaving the church at 12. I still went because I couldn't stop. My parents were forcing me. But that was something that stayed in my mind. Like, what do you mean white and delightsome? And my skin is black. So it means almost everything. It's kind of crazy that this is the first scripture that you blasted.
Yeah. Summerrain, what are your thoughts on this scripture verse?
I mean, I wore a Black Panther shirt for the last time that we met together, Black Priesthood and RFM. So that kind of shows you what I think about that statement. It is interesting because growing up on the East Coast, we never delved into what this really meant. I do know that there was always a reference to more Native Americans, right? It was never directly Black people or Cane of Curse. That fun stuff is in, the Pearl of Great Price. But this itself, they kept trying to make it sound like, well, it's the Native Americans, Lamanites, Nephites, and that was it. Growing up and now looking back on it, and also looking at the statements made by church leaders around this time, I see why so many Black members have trauma, especially growing up in Utah. I can't imagine. I've said this before. I was very insulated on the East Coast with my parents. My mother didn't take any crap, and so I didn't really experience that growing up. But hearing these things, I'm now seeing why interracial marriage was discouraged for one of my friends who was Black, and dated somebody in our ward. And his mom was saying, no, I don't think you should date your kids. What about your kids? It's very difficult because this was not only doctrine, it is scripture, and it has very, very widespread effects.
Thank you.
So,
yeah. Tara, what are your thoughts on this doctrine, and when did you discover this?
My teachings about it were similar to Summer Rain's, of that it was specifically talking about Lamanites, not about Black people. But my upbringing in general was just interesting because I grew up in an interracial family, and at the time of being adopted and my parents deciding to adopt interracially, it was also against church teachings to do that. And so they got a lot of negative letters, phone calls from family members, from neighbors, from bishops when they decided that they were going to adopt interracially. And that's one of, I think, the hard parts about Mormonism, is that the Black people who do enter it or who are in it by whatever way, that we have to be like the lesson for the racist members. And to put that on a child is kind of insane, but even like grown Black people to put that on, that they have to be the lesson for these racist members, is a lot to hold. So I understand your perspective too, Black Priesthood, because I also didn't learn until my Mormon mission in 2013 about more of the history for Black members in the church. And I grew up Mormon my whole life and in Utah. And it wasn't until my mission that I learned that. So I think it's like conversations like these are so important because it feels brand new as a Black member when you learn this thing and that you were never taught, and it's never really talked about. And it goes so deep. And like you said, to your mental health, I had a similar experience of just horrible mental health, and the betrayal that I felt specifically from my own parents. I feel like I still feel it today, just because, again, we just don't talk about it.
Thank you, Tara. Mariama, when did you discover this doctrine, and how did it impact you?
Yeah, I've been aware of it since I was a child. And I've been thinking, as I was listening, I've been thinking about how much, I think for us, it's very similar in terms of it meant the Lamanites, but also there's an element of it also referred to Black people and Black skin. And I just think, when I think back about, we would cover that scripture in seminary, we would cover that scripture in Sunday school, we'd cover it in Relief Society when you get older, and institute. So the message was reiterated. And while it wasn't always, I could tell it was awkward for people to talk about it when they were teaching, but it wasn't always, it was always there. In that sense, it was always in the back of my mind. And I just think, as a child growing up in the UK, I'll start with, actually, my mum joined the church in the late 80s, and in the town that we live in the UK, there weren't many Black people around, there weren't many Africans here. So they experienced quite a bit of racism. And interestingly, when my mum joined the church, I visibly remember as a child hearing aunties saying to my mum, like, my mum was Methodist before, they're like, why would you join that particular church? Like, of all of them, why would you pick that one? Because they're racist. I remember that as a child, but didn't really quite connect that it was related to the scripture, and I had no clue about the history. I only found out the depth of how bad it was for Black members since I've left, literally in the last couple of years. And it is really hard to find the words, because like Tara, the betrayal that I feel from the church, but also it's I participate in something that just, I wasn't just purely based on my skin, based on the history and their racial issues. I wasn't accepted by God. Like, it's not, this is God we're talking about. Yeah, it's not an easy thing to sort of reconcile with at all, and come to terms with, what, at least for me, what I was participating in, and the fact that I was a missionary for them.
For me, what was equally devastating was being persuaded, indoctrinated, and convinced to go and teach other Black folks their inferiority before their God. That was just unacceptable. But I want to ask Radio Free Mormon and Bill to chime in. Radio Free Mormon first. So the question I've always had at the back of my mind is, and you may not have an answer to this, and that's fine, is why were so many white people comfortable with or not challenging this doctrine? I'm not asking you to respond to that, but this is the question that I've had of all the friends that I met in the church, that it just seems such like this was just a dismissed topic for them. They were not interested in engaging in it, in talking about it. And at the back of my mind, now that I've stepped away, always challenging the friends that I met, the families that I met in the church, why didn't they stand up for and challenge this doctrine? But for now, RFM, and if you want to look to that, that's great too. But what are your thoughts regarding this doctrine?
Well, it's a bit tough for me, only because I was actually baptized the month the revelation was received, rescinding the ban in June of 1978. So there really wasn't a me in the church prior to that I can look back to, or look at other people in the church at that time. I am going to have a follow-up question for Tara, but I want to give Bill a chance to comment on that, because I'm sure he's got something good.
I'll just say, I was a 17-year-old convert who was influenced heavily by in-laws who held to the Bruce R. McConkie style of things. And so I just took in 6,000-year Earth all of that sort of theology and the racist priesthood ban came right along with it. So I had a father-in-law who sat down with me, and as I would have questions about things, he would explain sort of that Bruce R. McConkie point of view. And I remember early on trying to have a conversation with an African-American woman who was an assistant manager at the store I worked at. And she was asking me questions. And the very first time, like, I sensed deep offense. I wasn't in the church even a year yet. And I'm answering her questions with the Bruce R. McConkie theology. And I could tell immediately that she was offended, rightfully so, obviously. And it's the first time as a white male dealing with Mormonism so fresh that I'm sort of like wanting to say the things out loud that it's telling me to say, and noticing like, oh, like that's deeply offensive. And of course, right away, I'm like, of course that's offensive. I'll say really quickly 2 other things, and I want to back out and you guys can pick up the rest of the conversation. I find it strange as you put that first slide up on the screen that it's white Mormon apologists who explain like it doesn't mean that black skin, it doesn't mean this. I find that really uncomfortable that it's white people who stand up and try to explain it away. And then I'll also just note that we have some Native Americans in our audience who are pointing to the Book of Mormon. When it talks about that scripture, it really is about Native Americans. But I'll just say, we all clearly understand in Mormon theology that old stuff about the racist curse and being less valiant in the pre-earth life, that the darker your skin is, the more cursed you are. I think we all sort of make that connection that Mormonism tried to teach it that way. And so while the Book of Mormon is about Native Americans, and that's its own set of stories and offense, I just want to note that African Americans or people from Africa or people with really dark skin, it seems so rational and logical inside the lens of Mormonism to sense that the darker your skin color is, the worse you were in the pre-existence, the worse you were in some way, that you had a cursed skin that became even darker than, say, the Lamanites, for instance.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other comments? Any additional thoughts before we move on to the next slide? Oh,
yes,
RFM, I think you had. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Terry, you had mentioned the burden that Black Mormons carry of being the, I think you put it as the lesson for the racist Mormons. Can you explain to the audience what that looks like?
So at least how I was raised, I was taught that after, and many Mormons think this way, like I've seen other Mormon apologists say this exact same thing. I can literally send a clip that after Martin Luther King Jr. Was able to, have civil rights, that racism is over. And so they don't really dive into the systems that are still aligned today that support African Americans in the United States being less than, and what that's done just across the world as well. And so I think for a lot of Black Mormons, like, there's times I've heard of people, their mission president knew that this certain person was extremely racist. And so they put a Black missionaries to get companions together so that this other companion can learn not to be racist, which is just abusive, and then even as I was growing up and having racist experiences, like I literally had kids in my school who on their trucks had Confederate flag banners, and that's another thing too, if we want to talk about just American history, that we really don't get into the depths of how bad slavery really was in the United States and how much we dismiss it. And so, yeah, kids that are driving their trucks with these Confederate flags to school, or the first time that I was called the N-word, like really the only consolation prize that Black members get is like, be the example, like be the member. And now I can see that that's like, oh, be the good Black person, right? Like, or now aunts or uncles who have changed their minds, it's like, oh, like you helped to change their mind. And it's like, no, their mind isn't changed. They just see me as a good Black person because I was raised by white parents. And so there's still a lot of racist undertones to a lot of those things. And it's difficult, I think, as Black members to constantly have to teach white members how to treat you and interact with you because they've never interacted with other Black people. I usually was a lot of people's first interaction with a Black person. My parents, their kids that they adopted were the first Black people. Like, they didn't have Black friends. They didn't have other people in their life who were Black. And so this is their first lesson. And to them, they would say, well, we're all alike unto God, right? Like, we're all the same. But now the older I get, and after connecting with my biological family, it's like I see how I was raised with a view of Black people in a very stereotypical, almost very white way of viewing Black people versus what Black culture and what it means to be Black actually is.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question to that, Tara. Do you feel like being raised in Mormonism, and we'll come back to the rest of the slide, but being raised in Mormonism, did that deny you, or did you feel like you lost opportunities to connect with your culture just because you were extracted out of your birth, out of your culture, and presented with a whole different narrative, a whole different environment, a whole different story that you had to fulfill? Do you feel like you were robbed somehow?
Oh, absolutely. That's like every therapy session I ever have is about how Mormonism and Utah is quite literally the exact opposite of my biological family and culture. And it's literally the complete opposite. My biological family is Catholic and Creole and just very rich Louisiana roots and just very Black, right? And like even in Louisiana, like it was so hard for me to understand because I was always told that like, oh, you're like Carlton from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? Like you're Black, but like you're not really Black. And it's hard for people to understand that like I'm Black as fuck. Like I was like my ancestors are Black, like this, like there's nothing that can take that away regardless of how you're raised. And being adopted is also a very, very Black American experience, you know? And so it's so different now raising my kids because I can remember where I was at their age, and it's like gonna make me emotional because I was never proud to be Black. It probably took me until I was 30 years old to be like, I'm so happy that I'm Black. And my, 9 and 5-year-olds just, they love being Black and they argue over who's Blacker, right? And like, they're so proud. Like my husband is half Jamaican and like, it's just such a different upbringing than mine to see their pride in who they are and where they come from.
Love that.
Thank you.
Love that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a real experience. I just want to say very quickly, Black Priesthood, before we move on to the next thing, there was a time in this church when people would get their patriarchal blessing, and it would say the lineage, they are from the lineage of Cain.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh my God.
this is, Jane Manning Smith was one of them from my memory.
Yes.
The one that the church loves to kind of exalt and whatever. She, from what I remember, she was one of those that the patriarchal blessing literally said lineage of Cain. So I can't even imagine going in, having faith, and then that is the lineage that I'm told I am from. And the third president of the church, John Taylor, after Brigham Young, when asked why there were Black people after the flood, he said because Satan needed representation. So it's I know we're talking about this one verse in Book of Mormon, but I think it needs to be understood that this is a foundational thing. Just as Bill was saying before, it's not just, oh, they're talking about Native Americans. There is a foundational issue here. And instead of ridding that foundation and starting over, they just decided to build on it, which is why it keeps crumbling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sorry, I just want to throw
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. Okay, next slide, please. Right. So the rest, I think the next 3 slides, recently, I think at least in the last 10 years, you find church and leadership and members minimizing and trying to redefine the word black. Oh, black doesn't mean black, and skin doesn't mean skin, and curse doesn't mean curse. These next slides are, this was canonical, this was documented, this is exactly what the underpinnings of this doctrine and how it was administered. Okay, so let's see. Summerrain, could you please read this for us?
Okay. As long as you don't have me read Marky Peterson. I love the other ones. You see some classes of the human family that are black, uncouth, uncomely, disagreeable and low in their habits, wild, and seemingly deprived of nearly all the blessings of the intelligence that is generally bestowed upon mankind. The first man that committed the odious crime of killing one of his brethren will be cursed the longest of any one of the children of Adam. Cain slew his brother. Cain might have been killed, and that would have put a termination to that line of human beings. This was not to be, and the Lord put a mark upon him, which is the flat nose and black skin. Brigham Young, Second Mormon Prophet. Journal of Discourses. Pick it up at your local Deseret book.
Mariam, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this? And have you encountered this statement by Brigham Young before?
No, I haven't. That's the first time seeing that.
Yeah.
Gosh, lots of thoughts are running through my head. The issue that I have, the thing that pisses me, sorry, can I use that word? Excuse my French. The thing that pisses me off.
Are we asking now? I think Tara blew that out of the water. RFM, you're on mute.
I was saying something similar. Say whatever you like.
They've disavowed this whole teaching, but they haven't dismantled it, right? It's not like they've completely ripped it apart and there's shock, horror, we cannot believe this was ever taught, we're really sorry. There's no apology, there's no nothing. So, and the fact that as far as I'm aware, it's now pure and delightsome. Just going back to that first slide with the first scripture, I think the verse has changed slightly, but to me, the fact that they haven't dismantled it properly, there's no apology, that to me reads that there's still probably an underlying belief that that's a real thing. I didn't know that the curse of Cain, like the fact that the Mormon church believes it's the skin of blackness, I didn't know that was pretty much a Mormon thing until I left, because I remember maybe about a year after I'd left, I was like, oh, let me just go have a look at my King James version of the Bible. Let me just read what it says in Genesis. Yeah, it doesn't say skin of blackness in there. We actually doesn't even say what the curse is, just says this curse. I was like, well, hold the fuck on, because my understanding was I grew up thinking that was a Christian, like a general Christian belief that across different denominations. I thought, no, that's just a Mormon thing. And then anyway, I think it just reads to me that they still believe that it's not been dismantled. They haven't apologized. They haven't addressed it. None of the leaders have come forward to say how horrible or disgusted they are by that teaching. Yeah, to me, I think it still stands today. That's my, and then we'll probably talk about this, but that pisses me off even more because their efforts in Africa, so the very people that Brigham Young quotes about, they're now ramping up their efforts in Africa. And my mum spends about 9 months of the year in Sierra Leone, in Freetown, and I talked to her about it, and baptisms are up. like they're increasing. And I just think you're relying on the people that you say are cursed and that you don't want to actively dismantle that teaching. You're relying on their baptisms to show how much your church is growing and how much your church is true. And yet you won't dismantle this. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Sorry, I always fall over my words because so angry. I'm so angry about it.
Justifiable. Yes.
Can I just say really fast too about the baptism in Africa? I could be wrong about this. There's a book, Second Class Saints by Dr. Matt Harris. A lot of what I'm pulling from and what Black Priesthood's going to pull from comes from that book. But from what I remember, the whole point of genealogy started because they went to Brazil and they wanted to make sure that there was no, as they called it, Negro ancestry. So it's interesting that that's how genealogy started, ancestry.com, all of that was just to make sure there's a pure white lineage, right? And now the Africa's what's saving the church with numbers. So it's just interesting.
Yeah.
And Lori, what are your thoughts? And have you encountered this particular statement from Brigham Young in the past?
Unfortunately, I had read it as a 12-year-old and I found ex-Mormon. So I've read a lot of things, but I haven't been close to to any of this for like years and years. And I'm actually quite saddened because my family's Haitian. And if you're from the Boston area, you know, there's a Boston word and there's a Haitian word. And our culture is different and we're loud. And we don't do the Mormon church the same way. Like, I'm no longer Mormon and I haven't visited in years. But I'm just like wondering, like when we enter church and it's all Haitians being loud and we don't sing on key and we're like, you know, just uncouth, I guess. And everybody's just coming to church, looking at us and thinking about that.
Yeah.
And my whole family's part of it and they go to church. I'm actually like really sad. Like I want to cry. Like at first it was just a podcast or, you know, but now it's like, wow, I want to talk about it more. I unfortunately, like I had a TikTok go semi-viral from my account because my account is obscure. No one knows it, you know, and it was just a fun thing that I did just on a random day before I went out to go celebrate Haitians at a World Cup game. It wasn't anything serious, but now, and I honestly, a lot of people have asked me to talk about it and I had to be unserious because my family's on TikTok too. My dad was embarrassed. My TikTok went on the church president, you know, everybody's talking about me and I don't want to embarrass them, but at the same time, I am embarrassed for them because I know that is so ugly. Like, can you imagine? We're loud. We're not like the most reverent. Haitians are not reverent. We're not going to be, even our version of reverence is not what, you know, the Mormon version is. And we don't preach the same way. And it's kind of like every Sunday, that's what we're being judged. I know, like, because like you said, Mariana, it's not just deconstructed. I know people think like that. And I wonder if, like, the different wards, is it because they want us to feel community? Or is it because they want us to be separate?
Yeah.
That's been a question of mine. Is it really community because you just came from Haiti and you want to meet other Haitian? Or is it to separate the Blacks from the Mexicans, from the, you know, all the people who come in? Is that why are we separate? I don't know. That's my main question. But I don't know.
I think too, Anne-Laurie, like that it is a sense of like, because when I talk to friends who are still Black members, their views of Mormonism and how they live Mormonism is really beautiful. And like, I'm like, if this is how Mormonism was and is, like, I would love to be able to participate in this, but like, this is just not what it is, you know? Like, this is like, I feel like you almost have to have this false sense of like hope and like a really big, I don't know, almost view of and dream of like what Mormonism could be, to be able to stay in Mormonism after you've been treated the way you have. And I feel really bad for African members specifically, because I feel like they grow up with this sense, especially if they're in Africa, of just like Black pride and a real African pride. And then a lot of times they will, you know, immigrate to the United States, and it's like the biggest slap in their face to see how the United States actually just in general thinks about any Black people. Doesn't matter where you're from, if your family grew up in the United States or not, like this is how they feel. And then to see how your own religion that like got you here actually views you is like another, it would be so daunting. And especially I think of like different parts of Africa and Haiti specifically being in the news of being just absolutely disrespected and so racist, the things that people say and do, and to not have the support of, sure, you may have your ward support, but to not have the support of like all of the members and being able to denounce that and be like, yeah, Haiti is a beautiful place. And the reason it's like this is because of the United States, or you know what I mean? To actually be able to like see the nuance in things. Instead, they go along and continue in these political ways that are so against, again, the majority of the members who are now being recruited and baptized into their religion.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Bill, thoughts, comments?
Yeah, as you guys were chatting, I mean, I'm sitting here and just thinking about what it would be like. Again, I'm white, cisgender, heterosexual, male. And so in every way in the church, somebody in the comments said, like, people like me have been harmed. Sure, yes, but we're the most privileged among the saints, right? Falling into all of those categories. And then to sit back and of course, you know, I've heard these stories like this since I've started to deal with Mormon history and confront it really honestly. But to hear people share the things that have happened to them, it's heart-wrenching. I can't even imagine every day getting up and experiencing life the way you guys do. And just to say, like, even if it's a great day, just the fear of dealing with the things, because they're behind you, you know that you've dealt with them, so you know that more of them are coming. Anyway, I just really appreciate the conversation, and I hope that the audience, that this is valuable for them to sit with what it's like to be in the shoes and behind the eyes of another human being.
Thank you. Thank you. By the way, Bill and RFM, feel free to jump in. We're going to dive into the rest of the slides. If you have comments, please just jump in. So RFM, if we can step through a couple more of these slides, the next two, please.
Here's the next one.
Oh, this is the next. Okay, great. Thank you. RFM, can you read this, please? Could you read this for us?
Sure. 1868, George Q. Cannon. These are in chronological order. We will first inquire into the results of the approbation or displeasure of God upon a people, starting with the belief that a black skin is a mark of the curse of heaven placed upon some portions of mankind. No mark could be so plain to his fellow men as a black skin. This was the mark God placed upon him, and which his children bore. After the flood, this curse fell upon the seed of Ham through the sin of their father, and his descendants bear it to this day. Their skin is black, their hair woolly and black. Thanks for giving me this one, Black Priesthood. Their intelligence stunted, and they appear never to have arisen from the most savage state of barbarism. George Q. Cannon, First Presidency Counselor.
Imagine being a black member of the church and coming up on this statement by George Q. Cannon, who was the first presidency counselor And this is his belief, this is his doctrine. If we are to believe that church leadership, or God will never permit the prophets and the seers and revelators to lead the church astray, this is their view, that their skin is black, their hair woolly and black, and their intelligence stunted. So essentially what he's saying, we're less by virtue of this dark skin that we occupy. A skin that I had no choice, if there's a pre-existence, to accept or deny. This is just what it is. Like, I didn't have a choice. I didn't select this. I just arrived in the world this way. But the penalty is put on me, and I feel like this violates the second article of faith, that all people will be held accountable for their own actions, not penalized for what Adam or Eve did. But in this case, Black people, according to church doctrine, are penalized for what Cain did. Right. So let's see. Summer Rain, thoughts, feelings.
So my shelf broke with the Blacks in the Priesthood essay, gospel topic essay. I was not, again, I grew up on the East Coast, so there wasn't a lot of talk about why before this, who made it, why. I didn't hear any of these excuses. It was just, we don't know. When I read the Blacks in the Priesthood essay, I remember crying reading about Elijah Abel, because I had never heard of him before. I'd heard, that Blacks didn't have the priesthood, and then they do. Now they do, let's be happy. To hear of a man who had it, and then it was taken away, it just broke my heart. I was so upset. And as many people, the gospel essays, topics, they were a beginning of an end for me, because I saw in black and white what was going on. I read that quote that you just read, RFM, and I think of the Elijah Abels. I think of the Jane Manning Smiths. We are talking about history, but they were living during this time. I cannot imagine. I mean, a lot of the racism that we feel in modern day is, passive aggressive. There's some dog whistle. Sometimes it's overt, where someone will just say the N word, but generally it's this undercurrent. I cannot imagine going to church on Sunday and being told God said that you are not allowed to have the priesthood. God is saying that you're not allowed to go to the temple. Your family is not allowed to be sealed. You are uncouth. Your intelligence is stunted. I mean, you're choosing what faith, right? You're choosing what church to go to. And the church you're going to stands with how you think God views you and your relationship with God. I cannot imagine. It's very upsetting. It's extremely upsetting. And for us, we can read these things and say, our shelf will break. I don't know the cognitive dissonance you have to, I don't know, to see all these different religions and have one be so blatantly in your face, say, we don't respect you. We think that you are lesser than, and it's not even us, it's God. And say, I want to be baptized in that one. I just, it breaks my heart thinking of the Black pioneers that were part of this when it was actively being taught. Not now when they want to disavow but not apologize. When it was actively, this is what we believe. Brigham Young saying, you know what, what's it called? If you have an interracial marriage or you have children, they should be blood atoned. God has no problem with killing of the marriage, the two in the marriage, and their children. This was said by Brigham Young. There were people who were joining then. I just, Yeah, that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, sentiments? Go ahead, Anne-Laurie.
I just find it kind of sad because no one goes to Haiti and says any of that. You know, no missionary goes to Haiti or any other country and says all of that. That's what bothers me, because the version, like Tara said, the version of Mormonism that my mom believes in doesn't know this. And if I brought this to her, she wouldn't, like you say, cognitive dissonance. Exactly, that's what it is. Because she's 60 now. She spent probably 40 years being Mormon, and she is fervent. When I say fervent, this is her whole life. And she's not the only Mormon woman that is this way, who is Black or Black descendant. So she has given her whole life to the church ever since she was in Haiti to now. That is her whole soul. So that's what, I don't know. I feel like right now, I feel like I should just go shout on the rooftop and just don't care about the backlash, because it's going to come. Because it breaks my heart, because it's not just my family. It's millions and millions of families. And it really, yeah, it does break my heart. Like,
You know, if the church were what it claims to be, this kind of conversations is what they should have had a long time ago. The best time to have taken care of this was way back then. The next best time is now, right? You would think that they would fervently pursue having this conversation and getting this issue resolved. And Summer Rain, you mentioned the word disavow. You know, when that statement came out, I went and looked at dictionary definition of disavow, sorry. And what it says is not taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they intentionally meant to use that word, but disavow essentially means I'm not going to take responsibility for this mess up that I created.
It was a lawyer that stood up there and said it at B1. So it was meant to say it the way it was said it. I'm pretty sure RFM will agree. Lawyers don't go up there and say things without, oh, there we go.
Yeah.
If you're accusing President Oaks of playing games with words because he's a lawyer, I'll take it as a compliment.
Yes. So, yeah, so knowing that members will interpret it the way they want, as far as a lot of the mainstream members are concerned, it was the chapter is closed, right? This was resolved. But that word disavow means I'm not going to take responsibility for this screw up. Okay. Next slide, please.
Well, I think someone wanted to say something. So there was somebody else.
Oh, sorry.
Was it Marima? Were you?
Yeah. I did want to just add, I guess part of what has crossed my mind as we're just having this conversation is there's also an element of, and I'll speak for Africans and I'll speak for Sierra Leoneans in some cases, that their proximity to whiteness, like they might be aware that that's a doctrine or previously was, but they believe that being a little bit closer to whiteness makes them better, a better Black person. And that, I think that's probably an element that some, as I said, I can only speak for perhaps some Africans or some Sierra Leoneans who might feel that way. And also, I think it's the other thing I was going to say, which has completely gone out of my head, but it was something around navigating the world as a Black person. The UK likes to think they're not racist. I don't know if anyone has ever come across things like this. They like to think we're not racist. There is, like, it absolutely exists, and you can see it. We see it in the media. When the England team, they're predominantly Black. A lot of the football players in England are predominantly Black. If they lose a game, it's like across. Like, I mean, their monkey sounds. You can hear them, and you can hear it on the screen on the pitch, and you see what the media will print as a result if we've lost the game. It happened in the last World Cup, and you know, walking around, there's so much that it was 2020 when I started talking to other Black people and starting to realizing that all the things that I experience, I'm not alone in them. I am printing a receipt when I leave a store. In the UK, you've got your self-checkout when you're leaving a supermarket or any store. I make sure you can opt out of printing out your receipt, but I make sure I take that because I've been often stopped by security because there's an assumption purely on the color of my skin that I have stolen something. So they'll double check my bag. And I always make sure I print out a receipt, not to have to then try and go through my bank account and show what I've spent money on. Or and I realized I'm not alone in that. There are so many Black people that have experienced that as well. And then to have this layer of Mormonism, and as I said before, this wasn't like, for, at least for me, when hearing about it and learning about it as a child, I thought it came from God. I genuinely believed that when I died, my skin would be white. That was a genuine belief. At my baptism, I was baptized at 9. At the time, I wanted to be white. My experiences that I had as a child, they start early. People calling me the N-word, people asking if my skin color comes off when I shower. It starts quite early, and already I was seeing things. You see things in the media, you see what the standards of beauty are in the 90s and the 2000s. I wanted to be white. That was, and I thought, well, when I die, that's going to happen anyway, and because that's what God said. So there was no one to blame for that. I don't know if anyone else took that, but I literally took that on like, well, it sucks, but it's the way it is. Like I wasn't happy about it, but because I believed God had said that, then I accepted that that's what it is, and I just had to strive to be the most righteous I could, so that I could make it. That's it. And to think of little me, or anybody else that might have thought that or experienced any of those feelings, like, makes me so. And again, there's just nothing. We're all just left to deal with it now, the repercussions. And I say it all the time. The echoes. It was 1978 when the ban was lifted, but the echoes, like the repercussions of that teaching for decades that they taught that, we felt it in the UK. I saw what was going on in the wards I grew up in. I saw how Black members were talked about and treated. I see how in the 90s we had packs of used white shirts that were sending to Africa because they believed that African members needed to wear white shirts and not traditional clothing. I know what I saw all of that.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other thoughts before we pull up the next slide?
I mean, there's literal products that they use in Africa, especially to bleach your skin.
Oh, God, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a real thing, and we're talking about Mormonism, but that's just it's just a small blip on society as a whole, because these are people who've never even heard of a Nephi, so so there's something that's perpetuated out there, which is really sad.
And you layer that kind of inferiority, you layer that self-hatred, you layer doctrinal requirement to be white. Imagine the mental and psychological damage that does. Okay, we will come back to that conversation at some point, hopefully. RFM, please go ahead. Okay, let's see. Tara, could you please read this for us?
Yeah. This is from 1948, George Albert Smith. From the days of the prophet Joseph, even until now, it has been the doctrine of the church, never questioned by any of the church leaders, that the Negroes are not entitled to the full blessings of the gospel.
Right. So I empathize, and my heart breaks for the Native Americans that were designated, their history distorted and given a new name. And that topic and avenue is very interesting to me. I think the intention for this evening's podcast was to zero in on the fact that this doctrine was applied and interpreted, applied, enforced on Black people. All of the slides that we've gone through already designate specifically Black. So when members try to redefine the words, they've never been able to explain to me why this word, shouldn't have the meaning that we originally understood as articulated by church leaders and, academics and scholars. But here he's talking about the Negroes are not entitled. So it doesn't designate anybody else. saying the Negroes are not entitled to the full blessings of the gospel. Thoughts? Oh, go ahead. Yeah, let's read this one.
I added this one, Black Priesthood, because I'm convinced that correspondence with Lowry Nelson from 48 that was just quoted led directly to the first presidency letter and pronouncement of doctrine in 1949.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The policy of direct commandment. This is direct commandment from the Lord. As an attorney, RFM, what does direct commandment versus policy? What is the distinction, or is there any?
Oh, there's a huge distinction. I mean, this is what God said. God has directly communicated this to the LDS Church through its prophets. He claims it's from the beginning and from Joseph Smith, which was common to claim that at the time, although we've seen that was not necessarily, indeed, it wasn't the case with Joseph Smith, at least not as far as being
the priesthood ban,
saying that at least black men could not receive the priesthood. I don't know about the temple. I don't know. I don't know if he got far enough along in his life to see how that would have panned out. But he seemed to have had a more open mind on that particular subject than later leaders of the church, including Brigham Young, and all the way down to 1949, when now the first presidency statement, by the way, guys, this is what doctrine used to be settled by, was the first presidency issuing a statement on something. That settled doctrine. That was the revelation.
back in the day.
Yes. And now, but it's very clear that the first presidency in 1949 said that the priesthood and temple ban on blacks is not a matter of the declaration of a policy, but of direct commandment from the Lord, on which is founded the doctrine of the church from the days of its organization.
Is it just me? I mean, I'm open to stand corrected because it seems like there's a vigorous effort to redefine that this was merely policy that could be changed at any time, that it wasn't doctrine. Any thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, now people try and say that, like, even saying that it never was like as bad as it was, right? And like the fact that people will sit and say like we don't know why is just so ignorant. The fact that there's so many teachings on this, like, and of course, like Bruce R. McConkie is the famous teacher on it, right? That people like to use, but like you can go back and there's quotes after quotes. And even to this day, I think of like, well, if it has gotten better, then why is it still when we go to the temple that they're all white? Why is that still a thing when you go to do your endowments or whatever, that everyone is still white in the video? Like, if this is so widely accepted, wouldn't it have changed where like now when we go and watch the temple video that it's like all interracial, like if we're all so alike unto God, because I had those same feelings as Mariama growing up of wanting to be white and just knowing that like I would be white when I die. That's literally what I thought, like, oh, I'll be white when I die, and being conflicted by that, right? Because it's like, well, what is so wrong with being black? What is so wrong with my skin color? Like now it's almost ridiculous to think that somebody's skin color could mean so much, especially in the eyes of God. It's the same thing when it comes to like gender or sexuality. Like God, if there is a God, like, wow, to spend such a large amount of time policing people is crazy. And I think of like, my parents would always say, once you're a parent, you'll understand like better God and like why the things are the way they are. But the older I got and the more kids I had, the less I understood, because I just was like, this is not how I want to parent. Like, I don't want to police my kids' religion, their sexuality, their mind. I don't want to be in charge of that. I don't want to parent that way. And if that's what parenting is and what it has to be, then like, who would want this? What a miserable existence, in my opinion.
Thank you, Tara. Thoughts? Any additional thoughts, comments on this?
And Larry, do you have anything to add to that?
I stand with the same belief. Like, who's going to tell the Haitians this? Like, because they're not researching. They're not leaving.
Yeah.
Like, all the kids I grew up with definitely left the church, but the parents are staying. They are, I think, I mean, in a way, it's a good thing that they're not researching. They can have the gospel and believe in it and have a beautiful community within themselves. But yeah, I don't relate to having, because I did grow up in Haiti and there was no, like, we're Haitians and very, very proud. That's one thing about a Haitian person. We're proud of ourselves. So when we came here, we just noticed that we were treated differently in the church. Like, my experience in the Mormon church in Haiti, if I still had it, if I was still living in Haiti, I'm sure I would have been like the first person to tell you about Joseph Smith, because it was like a blast for me. You know, I never knew about any of this. Like, we're blind. We're blind. I don't know if but yeah, it's very sad. But I'm learning so much here. Like, I feel like I want to call my mom, but I don't know how to, like, help other people, like my Haitian community, deconstruct. I don't even know how to start that. That's what I'm thinking about. Like, how do I tell them?
And I think that we all have family and friends that are still in the church and very much in the church. And that is a struggle of knowing what you know, but also not wanting to take something that's good for somebody else, but then also wanting to honor the trauma and what this church has done to those of us that didn't have a great experience, right? I mean, I always tell people I had a great experience. I think it's important to, and I just want to again thank RFM and Bill for giving us this platform, because what I heard a lot on the East Coast, whenever I'd hear something racist in church, it was, oh, that's the Utah culture, right? And so, and even now, I have family members that will say, yeah, that's because they're from Utah or they're from Texas or they're from Idaho. What is so important for me to have learned, this is Utah culture. The Utah doctrine, the reason why people think the way they do in Utah is because this is what they were taught. So we talk about Haiti, we talk about the UK, we talk about Africa, we talk about me on the East Coast. That is not Mormonism. Like, that's not a full, true Mormonism. It is a flavor, and it's amazing. I mean, I grew up in an amazing community. Like I said, my mom's West Indian. She's from Trinidad. Very proud. And so we were able to kind of celebrate our diversity, but also say this is a nice flavoring of connecting with God. When I moved to Utah, I was like, what the crap is this? What is this? And this is not the flavor of Mormonism I want my children to be under. Then when you dive deeper, you see these things and you're like, that's why. So it's not speaking as a man. It's not, it was a policy. This is what it is. And be proud, say it with your chest that, we were racist. We are, I mean, be proud, right? Of being peculiar and racist. But I think it's just important, because when we speak to our families in good communities or, whatever, they're going to say, well, that's them. That's a local leader. No, I'm grateful for this platform, because people need to understand this is the church. This is the church. It doesn't matter if Oaks is up there or Uchtdorf. And I'm one of those that's like, maybe it will be so much better under President Uchtdorf, but we have to address the roots. This is real.
Absolutely. All right. RFM, next video, please, or slide.
Just mentioned him.
This is a clip from 2018 at the B1 celebration where Gladys Knight sang, and before that, Dallin Oaks spoke. And this was a clip that he gave. Right. This is in the section of materials about statements by church leaders after 1978. Obviously, this is 40 years after 1978. And President Oaks is making it clear in this clip, I believe, that this was not the product of human prejudice. No, this was from God, the ban, and we just don't know why. But we definitely know it was from God.
Why was the revelation on the priesthood such an occasion of joy? As a young man in the legal profession, I lived in the Midwest and the East for 17 years. The restriction on the ordination and temple blessings of persons of African ancestry, almost invisible to me as I grew up in Utah, was a frequent subject of my conversations in my life in Chicago and Washington, D.C. I observed the pain and frustration experienced by those who suffered these restrictions and those who criticized the restrictions and sought for reasons. I studied the reasons then being given and could not feel confirmation of the truth of any of them. As part of my prayerful study, I learned that in general, the Lord rarely gives reasons for the commandments and directions he gives to his servants. I determined to be loyal to our prophetic leaders and to pray, as promised from the beginning of these restrictions, that the day would come when all would enjoy the blessings of priesthood and temple. Now that day had come, and I wept for joy.
Back to you, Black Priesthood.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. So I watched that video. I watched that talk. I think one of the things that occurred to me is the privilege of not ever empathizing and understanding the pain and the trauma of this doctrine. I think he makes a comment on there that he was, how did he put it? He was oblivious to the consequences of this doctrine. And my thought is how wonderful, how nice it is to not be able to see from the lived experiences of Black members of the church and what this trauma does. That's the thought that occurred to me in watching that. What are your thoughts?
I think also the fact that it was at a B1, the B1 celebration for Black Mormons is insane to me. Like, I can't believe that like they're sitting there like and can't see this as like a slap in the face. And I'm like, even these celebrations like that get organized, like all of this is usually done not by like the first presidency, right? Like I went on a mission to Atlanta, Georgia. So I was in Gladys Knight's ward in the movie, the Meet the Mormons, the bishop of the Atlanta ward. That was my bishop during the time of my mission. So seeing this all happen, like when I went to the Atlanta ward, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is how I can be Mormon for the rest of my life, because the whole ward was Black and all of it was so different than my other experiences of on my mission and growing up of racism from members. And so I was like, this is how I can do it. So it's usually people like that who are organizing these and then going and like begging someone higher up to like actually do these things until it finally happens, you know? But I think it's so disrespectful to say that we will never understand God if you sit here as just human beings and fail to understand just history. Like just, I think sometimes like Mormonism just like makes us so ignorant to the ways of life of other people and makes us so like scared to even like understand a different culture or like experience a different culture. Like I remember reading David Archuleta's book and like him talking about how when he's talking to Elder Ballard that like he's the first gay member that Elder Ballard has actually having a conversation with, like that he's the first one that he's like actually bringing these things up to. I was like, how are you supposed to seek revelation if you've never talked to a gay person? Like, how could you even like seek understanding for that if you've never talked to a Black person? Like, it's insane to me. I'm like, of course you don't know anything. You're so ignorant. God can't, if there is a God, how could he talk to you if you're so stupid?
I wish I had a
Summer
mic
Rain,
drop.
do you have a comment, please? Go ahead.
I'm just laughing over that because really, God can't speak through stupid people, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I was actually there at the B1 event, and it was a celebration of the priesthood ban being lifted, and I remember even then, because I was still believing then, that talk bothered me. Because how do you go from this was terrible and I didn't want it, I thought it was terrible, we were all praying for it to go away, to, but we just don't know why God was racist. We just don't know. And I knew then the church was never going to officially apologize. It's not going to ever happen. So for those that are waiting, it won't happen. It won't happen. They can't. They can't. It's kind of built in there. And when you go to, let's take accountability and say that this was wrong, or I'm going to blame God, and you decide to blame God, that's it.
Yeah. And even his like Elder Oaks saying like, oh, because I was in Utah, as if there's no racism in Utah. Like, why do you think there's not a lot of Black people living in Utah? I mean, now more are going to Utah, but I'm like, just like even that ignorance that just because your proximity to it, you have no, again, knowledge of history or understanding of any of that, like is, again, just, I feel like choosing ignorance.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest, I don't buy it, and I don't have poker face because I was just listening to that. My eyes are rolling in the back of my head because he can get in the bin. What's he talking about? Like, I don't believe that he wasn't aware. I'm sorry, I just don't. I'm just not sure if I believe that. It living in Utah, and I don't trust what he says. And he's come out. We know. I believe it's Oaks, right, who has said the church doesn't apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, like you were saying, Summer Rain, I think it is because I don't think they can ever apologize or ever dismantle it. It is fundamentally rooted, the racism is fundamentally rooted in Mormon theology. Like it is fundamental. They might be able to find ways or language to talk around it now or try to distance themselves from it. But it is so, they can't, when they start doing that, they're going to start leaning on, we're not really guided by God. This isn't really the one true church. I think that if they start to then really acknowledge what that was, that it was racism, then they're going to have to go down the route of, well, God isn't really, guiding us. Jesus isn't really the head of this church. But yeah, I generally, Oaks can get in the bin for me. I don't like him at all.
Any other thoughts?
Is now? Oh, go ahead, please, Lori.
Go ahead, Anne.
Yes, I agree with Mariana that first thing that came into my head was BS. I don't want to swear, but I just that was the first thing. And if they start apologizing or saying that racism, our prophet were wrong in the past, they're going to have to apologize for so much more, and the church will no longer exist. So I just started clapping. I don't know if you saw me, but I was like, that is the truth. I don't think the church is going to change. I don't think they might kind of like start saying something different to kind of like, you know, dilute it, but it's never going to be an apology. It's never going to be, you know, we're sorry for the harm we caused. We know Black people were hurt. We know that we lied to you, because if I lied to you, you're wrong. You know, that God wasn't leading me. So you're right, absolutely right. And yeah.
Thank you.
I know Bill wanted to talk about the apology too with the church.
But Mariama, go ahead if you.
It's just a thought that crossed my mind recently of like, as I've left the church and understood who Joseph Smith's character, there's something about these the qualities that the bad qualities that Joseph Smith had. I personally believe a lot of that has literally just carried on. I will say that that's how I see it in terms of how they approach things, what they talk about, and apologize or not apologize, and what they try to cover up, not be honest about, not apologize for, and it's multiple things across the board. I think that has just continued from Joseph Smith. I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think we have had honest, or the church has had honest leaders and people who really want to make change and be for the good of the people. I think that the characteristics of Joseph Smith in that sense, I think they've continued, but that's just how I feel. Yeah, personal opinion.
Yeah, because I think good people. Sorry. I was just going to say, I think good people don't care about being revered. I think good people like understand that like there's nuance in everything, and one person may think I'm a bitch and this person may think I'm the best person in the world, right? Like it's just the way of life. And so if your policy is to not talk ill of the Lord's anointed, wow, you think very highly of yourself. That's incredible to think of, that you think that highly of yourself. And now that I've like leaving Mormonism, I'm like, the way that we used to talk about like the prophet and things, I'm like, it's so weird. Like, it's very weird because there's nobody in my life, nobody, like not my parents, not my husband, nobody that I would talk with such, I don't know, like, I don't even want to say high regard because it's just delusional. It's absolutely delusional.
Thank you, Tara. Bill, go ahead, and then RFM, if you could play the next 3 videos, that'd be great.
Yeah. I hope I can express this right. I'm like all of you, I'm angry. Tara, that he picked, you named it, that he picked that occasion to tell church, by the way, guys, the ban still comes from God. We'll toss the theories away for you, but the ban stays. And when I watched the B1 conference, immediately it makes me go back to the gospel topic essay, and I go, oh, that whole thing was a bait and switch. When you read the gospel topic essay, all of us, when we read it, we thought we were reading that the ban was being thrown in the trash. Yeah. And I get that from the very first paragraph, which is on the top right there on the right-hand side, where it says, as the Book of Mormon puts it, all are alike unto God. And so I'm like, oh, yeah, we're finally acknowledging that all of us humans are equal, and the ban was ridiculous to segregate one group of people versus another. And then you get to the very last paragraph, and it disavows the theories and calls them racist. And when I read the essay, I'm like, oh, finally. We finally get to a place where we can throw the ban away. And then the B1 conference happens, and it is so clear that Oaks is telling everyone in that moment, sorry, the ban stays as God's will. We'll get rid of the theories for you. And then I go back and I read the gospel topic essay, and I realize like, oh, they intentionally never actually tell you that the ban is trash. And if anyone out there thinks Elder Oaks is just giving his personal opinion, that's absurd. Yep. He's telling you the church's current stance, which is it is unwilling to bend that far because it feels like it would compromise too much. And so my question to all of you, because I know you all sense this, when you watched the B1 conference, what did it cause you to feel looking back now at the gospel topic essay, which I think essentially became worthless because of what Oak said.
Thank you, Bill. RFM, go ahead.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
Oh,
Did you say
Oh,
RFM? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, RFM, go ahead.
What would you like me to go ahead with? I'm sorry.
Oh, with the video, I'm trying to be mindful of time. Yeah, so let's see, the Brad Wilcox video, and then
While
I
you
wanted to
boot
play this.
that up, RFM, and
Yeah.
Anne Marie, did you have something you wanted to say about what Bill said?
no, it's okay. We can keep going. It's okay.
No.
Oh, he can find the video while you talk.
Yeah.
It takes RFM forever.
Forever. Just take as long as you need.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, since I left the church at like when I started becoming an adult, essentially at 18, 19, like I read those things and it's like, and I forgot them. I became another Christian, another like cult or something else. And then I just deconstructed God. Seeing this again, it's just like, you realize like so many things you didn't like. I'm still like, I left 10 years ago, and I'm still affected by it. You know,
Oh yeah.
it's not like,
Yeah.
oh, I left. It's probably next time I see it or talk about it, I am, it's not like one thing. Like you think you're done, like I'm done with the church. Never.
Yeah.
It's never ending. That's all I was gonna say, but
No, I agree, Anne Laurie. Like, I feel like my passion for it is because it's like, not only it makes me so angry and passionate that not only did I have such low self-esteem of myself, but then I also went and indoctrinated other Black members into this church, and I feel like lied to them. But then also, like, when I had my kids, that's when I was like, this is enough. Like, they are not going to believe that they are inferior and that it's from God too. Because I feel like that just adds insult to injury. The fact that they say that it's from God is absolutely absurd. And the fact that they cannot put themselves in the place of another human being to really think about that, to me, is probably exactly how people who owned slaves think about things, right? Like they just let it go out of their head of like, oh, well, they're just animals. They're just animals, instead of actually being able to empathize, be able to really care about people.
Yeah. I also want to add, like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, I'm hearing your stories and I'm like, oh, so I guess this is like from Mormonism, from growing up as a Mormon. It's not actually like, like I grew up being called Oreo or all these things that I picked up, like even speaking properly, which I tried to do with an accent, with a thick Haitian accent, trying to assimilate all those things where, I know we're in a different segment, but I just think I'm thinking about identity, like how we were robbed. I feel like we were robbed of who we were meant to be. At 30, I'm just now like, okay, listening to Haitian music, or like being okay with, even swearing. Even now, like I do swear, but now I'm like, oh, this is proper. How do I express myself? There's a way to be, and I don't know. It's just like I'm thinking like maybe I need to talk to my therapist about this, because this is not something, like I'm saying, I'm still affected by it today, because it's like, wow, there are things I didn't even know I carried with me until now. Like, I don't know. It's just, my mind is so blown. I'm so grateful for the slides, because I am learning again. And it's kind of crazy to me.
Thank you for sharing that, Anne Laurie. And the sad part of this is that the next generations of African American, African, and Black members of the church sadly have to go through this pain when they discover this history of the church. Okay, go ahead, RFM.
Yeah, this is from just 4 years ago, February of 2022, a statement Brad Wilcox made at a youth multi-state fireside, I think it was, in Utah. I can't remember, is a place called Alpine, in Alpine, Utah. And here's what he had to say.
A leader in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has received some backlash after comments he made at a youth fireside in Alpine on Sunday. Brad Wilcox was talking about questions he sometimes gets regarding why the church's priesthood was withheld from Black men.
How come the Blacks didn't get the priesthood until 1978? What's up with that, Brother Wilcox? What, Brigham Young was a jerk? Members of the church were prejudiced? Maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe instead of saying, why did the Blacks have to wait until 1978? Maybe what we should be asking is, why did the whites and other races have to wait until 1829?
Oh, you're muted, Black Priesthood.
Thank you. A lot of church members think this is history, this doctrine and its application, its enforcement, and the impact, the trauma, the betrayal is history. So we started out from the 1800s showing these comments that underpinned this doctrine. This statement by Brad is 2022. Right? So you can essentially, what we're seeing this evening is just a fraction of the comments, the doctrine, how it's been interpreted and applied in this church all through time, right? That the church has been in existence. So that comment was included to say that this is still happening in the church. The minimization of this issue, the impact, the dismissal is still ongoing. And in my opinion, I don't think that this will be alleviated or there will be relief until there's an apology that acknowledges the pain that has been caused by this doctrine. Thoughts, please.
Yeah, I don't, there will not be an apology. I know there won't be an apology because there are things that can be done right now, not to get off topic, but there are literal things that can be done right now to protect children within the church, and they won't do it. Very simple things, and they will not apologize for it. And that is something that's happening in real time. There is no way I see any leader saying this was a Brigham Young policy and we kept it going for all these decades and we should never have done it. I just don't see that happening, especially when you have leaders that, like Brad Wilcox, he was not just, he wasn't even told this was wrong. He was promoted after this. I mean, that's what happens within the church. You do something like this, and then instead of being reprimanded, unless you're Uchtdorf saying something like, we make mistakes, nobody else gets demoted. They get promoted. And so it infuriates me. So I'm not going to say much on this one because to me, it's a very simple thing that could help move the church forward. But I think that the church is also seeing what their doctrines have been saying for decades. They have white members of the church that grew up with these doctrine, this doctrine, and they would get a lot of backlash from them. There'd be an exodus of people leaving if they were to truly say, we do not stand by this, and this was a mistake. There would be people that leave because they've built their whole lives thinking that Black people are lesser than. And they just can't do that right now. So yeah, I just don't see any Black members healing if they're waiting for the leadership to take accountability and responsibility.
And it seems like there's still like such a lack of interaction with any Black people. Like even I think a couple months ago, like there was another leader that was said something about this song, This Little Light of Mine, how they didn't sound like Black enough to sing that song or something. I'm just like, that was recently. It's like, do you literally not have any Black friends? Like, as someone who grew up in Utah, like I have so many Black friends. Like I like, even with growing up in Utah where there's not supposed to be all these Black people, I'm like, I have so many Black friends. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't understand too when he says, again, this is a very American thing to be like, what about the whites? It's like, first of all, the term Black came because of the slave trade, because nobody could trace their ancestry back to where they originally came from. And now it's so mixed, right? When I did my ancestry, it has multiple different points across Africa. So I can't tell you originally the very first place that my ancestors came from in Africa, because of how mixed it is now. And so I hate it when just white Americans in general act like saying whites is the same as Black Americans, right? That's an over-ending term because of racism and slavery. You can trace and have always been able to trace your ancestry back to where you originated from. So him even saying that just bugs me so bad, because it's like, I don't know, it's like he's trying to equate like Black Americans and just Blackness in general, like to white people within the United States, when it's like, no, there's no such thing technically as like whites. You can use whatever term where you know you're from.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, Mariama?
I was just thinking about how, well, the lack of apology, but also I think I see their actions. I think that this year they recently called a Black general primary president. Is that right? I believe, from what I've seen.
I think so.
And so I get comments under some of the content that I post around this that, well, look at, they just recently called, I can't remember her name. They just recently called so-and-so. So they're not racist. Like, racism doesn't exist in the church anymore because, or they've got so-and-so in the 70 or, whatever senior leadership they want to talk about. I was like, and like literally just showcasing as a Black person or Black leader in the church does not mean that racism has magically disappeared within the LDS church, or they no longer believe those underlying doctrines. So it's interesting to observe some of the comments, and people are more offended by the fact that I'm trying to call out the church on their racism and the racist theology and doctrine than they are about the racism itself. Like, that doesn't offend them. It's the fact that I'm speaking up about it is what's the most offensive thing.
Yeah.
I'll just throw in the fact that I have a personal acquaintance with a member of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir who assures me, based on his personal experience, that there are not that many minority people in the choir, but it only seems that way because the people who operate the cameras make a habit of going back and over again the same small group of people, such that it looks like there's a greater diversity among the choir than there actually is.
RFM, you've reminded me. Oh, sorry. Okay. I was just going to say, I lived in Utah 2012 to 2014. And in 2013, my mum and my brother came to visit me and came to General Conference for the first time at the conference center. And our photo was taken outside. It was used in the following ensign, the conference ensign. And then I think a few months later, it was on the LDS church website. And I remember people in my home ward in the UK were like, did you pay for that? Like, how did you get in the ensign? Like, did you pay? Like, no, like, what? And then we also had comments underneath were like, oh, I wish I had a black baby, or I wish I had an ethnic minority baby so that I could also be on the front cover of the church's website, or my family could also be in the ensign. Like, but I think it's that very reason of like, if we are showcasing or we are visually representing Black people, ethnic minorities, then we're not racist. That doctrine doesn't exist. It's not something that we're, that we practice in these days. So I definitely think it is. I mean, I say it a lot of the time, actually, the church is quite a bit of a PR machine. It's all about image for them. It is all about language. That's how they want to be seen, and they'll absolutely curate certain things to make sure that they're seen that way, for the most part.
And I wanted to add on to that it's like about being a token Black person. That's the experience of a Black person in the church or a token wherever you go. And in the military, I visited Mormon church in California, token Black person, that's like, you're the pure example of the token Black person. As soon as you leave your for me, as soon as I left my little Haitian circle and I was around white people, I was like, yeah, let's welcome Lori. She's from there. She's Haitian, And then they ask you a question, kind of make it seem like, dance for us, Lori. Like, I don't know if it makes sense like that,
Yeah.
but anyways, I'm losing my thoughts, but that was my experience. That's why I couldn't, even when I was kind of like, maybe I left the church for a bad reason. Maybe I should go back and visit, and was like, no, I'm not dancing. I'm done. Like, this is not it for me. I was looking for a religion to fill the gap, but I knew then it was the end for me.
Thank you, Anne-Laure. Okay, RFM, I think you have a couple other videos with, let's see.
I do, a church historian.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please.
this is what you were talking about.
I think someone might have referenced this earlier. Yeah, and this is from last month. Can you believe it? This was last month. It was early June. This is late July 2026, but still last month in Oklahoma.
I'm grateful for this light. I'm especially grateful that we could sing This Little Light of Mine. That's a song where white people try to sing like Black people. And it's our hymn, but I want you to know that we sang it in our ward. I happen to be visiting our ward because I don't get to go to my home ward. And we sang it for intermediate or something hymn. And I'm sitting next to our second counselor there on the stand, and he's singing This Little Light of Mine, I'm gonna let it shine. And I went, dude, I wanted to turn to him and say, you're white. And he was saying, no, I'm an African slave is what I am. And I'm singing Swanee River. And anyway, I'm so glad it's in our hymn book. It does make you move just a little bit. And then there's another hymn in there that makes you move even more. I'm going to live so God can use me. I like that one.
Thank you. Yeah.
I wonder
Comments, thoughts?
who's letting them speak like so freely.
Honestly,
like you said, Tara, if they had Black friends, they would know that this is inappropriate. Like,
Yeah.
It's just get some Black. Actually, go dine with the Black family, or like befriend them, and just actually, just I don't know.
Such a weird, it was worse than I thought it was. I didn't realize it kept going on about the African slave comment.
It gets worse every time you watch it. And I think Black Priesthood and I have watched it maybe 7 times now. It's one of those things you don't get used to. It's so bad. And I will say, I am pretty sure all of these guys have Black friends, because that's the excuse they use is, I do have Black friends, and, and I said this on the podcast when we talked about this before, but this is where the ignorance comes in. This is the racism that I have experienced in Utah, where it's not mean-spirited. It's not, it's just very
It's just
ignorant.
a joke.
It's just a joke, but that does not take away the impact, period. It doesn't matter what the intent is. It still hurts. And he actually apologized, I want to say 3 days later. So I appreciated that. It's RFM's mission companion. I don't think he was on the mission with them long enough. He should have been on.
I did a good job training him, didn't I? Actually, he was my trainer.
That's your claim to fame. Oh my gosh, was it you that taught him that?
I taught him everything I knew. No, I got here in January of 1980. He'd been out for 7 months or so. He was my trainer. I was the green bean.
Oh, okay. So he was teaching you everything he...
Who knows?
That's crazy.
Small world.
Yeah. So fast forward, the church is growing rapidly in Africa. And what breaks my heart, and it's really painful to observe, are the exploitation of these African children, mass baptisms. It is probably likely the only region in the world, I think, other than the Philippines, where the church is rapidly growing. I think it's shrinking in South America. But look at this next series of photos and share your thoughts. If 70 to 80% of those reflected in these photos are not children, and I worry about their privacy. Do they have a privacy, or is the church just interested in showcasing this growth metrics in Africa and just baptizing? And who's giving permission for these children to be photographed and published? What about their privacy? Are their parents giving permission for these children to be baptized, or is it just out of desperation? Those are my thoughts on this before we jump into it. Go ahead, RFM.
I think I also... Sorry.
I was just going to say, this is these pictures. Here's the Democratic Republic of the Congo stake, December 20th, 2025. So less than a year ago. This is August 23rd, 2025 in, it's hard to read, Moriba Towns, it's Sierra Leone. April 18th, 2026. So recently in Mali. May 6th, 2023 in Nigeria. These are all apparently individuals getting baptized into the LDS Church and wearing their baptismal whites. This is also in Nigeria, June 24th, 2023, this picture. And those are the pictures. There's a lot of growth apparently going on in Africa.
I wonder how much the Mormon church even helps with any of the social issues. When you're looking at all these places across Africa, like there's huge things going on for people there, right? Politically and socially, and that's really causing a lot of struggle, especially in all the places that they mentioned. But you never hear like on church websites, like pray for the people of Congo, like pray for the people of Sierra Leone, like this is what's going on, like you would think it's just like all bliss. Meanwhile, like sure, they have a church building while bombs are freaking going off everywhere around them. I wonder how many of them are even alive still. Honestly, that's how bad it is in some of these places, and no talk of that, right? No talk of any of those issues. They're probably just like, thank God we got their baptized before they were killed or any of these things were going on.
I have a thought that's just that just popped into my head. It's just, so when I was in Haiti, and some of the pictures remind me of my childhood with like the whole church. And I'm not saying this is the African experience, but often the church buildings were beautiful and they had flowers, like when they look great. So joining the church was more of like
a reprieve.
Yeah, it helped you kind of look better. My dad was the stake president twice. And the status that my family had in Haiti, I don't think we would have had it without being Mormon. So that is the experience that I had, I was known by everyone, and my family was kind of like the celebrity of like, I'm not bragging. This is just, you can ask anyone about my father, and they will let you know if they lived in Haiti, and my family, my mom being a stake president for Relief Society, you know, all of that. So there's a status to it. It's attractive. It looks like we're living large, you know, even if we're struggling or not. And I also want to add that I'm not too knowledgeable, but I want someone to answer me. Were we expected to pay tithing when we were not allowed to have the priesthood? Was that something that we had to do?
Yeah.
To be a good Mormon?
Yeah. Yeah. Your money's still good.
So that, I don't know. And that's what I'm thinking about every time I see a Black person who gets baptized, who pays tithing, because I know tithing, I believed in it. You know, that was like, I was first job. I was so excited to go and give them my 10%. That was like, oh my, I can't wait, you know? So like, every time a Black person gets baptized, it's the tithing that I think about. It's like, that's the thing. And if you don't do it, you can't get in the temple, even if there's no temple. One day you want to go, you know? My family traveled to get to the temple. Because that's what I'm thinking about. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And I have questions too, and I don't know if Black priesthood, if you can answer this, is when they build temples in Africa and these other parts of the world, is the endowment ceremony, is it still like when they play the movie, is it still all white people for them, like in different parts of the world?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. I don't know.
I'm 99%
but I would assume it is.
sure that it's the same one, just different languages.
Yeah. So even that, right, is like indoctrinating and teaching people that like white is right. And
yeah, absolutely.
I know in the case of Africa, there's proximity to exactly what Anne Laurie was talking about. The credentialing by being next to a white American church is one of the biggest reasons for convert. It isn't that I shouldn't say a blanket general statement, but very few of those children that are baptized knows what they are joining. Very few of them are informed of the Cain, curse, Ham, descendant of Cain doctrine and the damage that came with that. Those kids are not informed. The parents are not informed of the history of the church. The parents are, in some cases, there's desperation enough to where the parents just think that proximity to white American church will give their families a leg up in life and opportunities in life. You can look this up. Google skin lightening or skin bleaching. I think Summer Rain mentioned this earlier. In some countries in Africa, there's 75% of people that despise their Black skin enough to bleach their skin, which is very damaging, causes a whole different set of health problems. But when you superimpose this church that promises you whiteness in the next life, this is the psychological trauma that we're looking at. All of those kids that I see in those photos, what their lives are going to be like when they come to a realization of something that they joined that were not fully informed of the history. Comments, thoughts?
Just thinking about a couple of things have come to mind. There's Sierra Leone, just a couple of things that have come to mind. I consider this modern day colonization because it's the idea that this Western white religion is placed on people basically to say this is how you need to worship. And Mormonism is quite specific about how they worship Christianity, how they practice Christianity, right? So they're telling these Africans that this is how you need to practice. This is how you get closer to God, and it's this very specific way. At the same time, not even acknowledging, participating in dismantling some of the real issues that Africans are facing. And I know Congo is going through quite a lot at the moment as well. More specifically, I recently posted around the humanitarian efforts of the LDS Church and just my views on that, and how I'm aware that they donated in the last couple of years, a few million, I think like 56 million in one year and 60 something in another, to maternal health. That's what it says on their press release on the website. And Sierra Leone is part of one of the countries that received some of that funding, as well as Ghana, other places in Africa and the global south. But what is really interesting to note is that there's no follow through around the funding. Like, we don't know what happens with that funding. We don't know what happens with the projects. There might be some, like maybe there's press releases later. There's some maybe conversation around it at general conference when they have, in between each session, they have those sort of humanitarian videos that they play. But there's no real, when I think about change and I think about some of the charities or organizations that are trying to change the world for the better, they actually are very accountable about how funding is spent. And then they also have reporting on what is happening on the ground and how lives are being changed. The LDS Church doesn't do that. And actually, they don't actually do the physical changing. They will fund other organizations, but don't follow through on what those projects, the outcomes of those projects, some of the reporting, and any of the changes. In my opinion, they don't care. They literally do not give a shit. That's how I see it. They don't give a shit about these issues. They don't give a shit about the issues that Black members are facing in Africa. They're just all about growth, numbers. What does it look like? The PR element. We want to be able to show that we are growing so that members can pay more tithing and keep their faith and we keep more members. But when it comes to actually caring about people, and I will specifically talk about Africa, caring about people in Africa and their problems, I don't give a shit. I think humanitarian aid, I think generally in terms of organizations, they do fairly well for disaster relief, but that's about far as it goes.
Yeah.
Just to go along with that, I mean, the question earlier about people of color prior to the 1978 revelation being expected to pay tithing when they can't go to the temple, they can't hold the priesthood. Even in the modern moment, as you point out, Mariama, the idea that Nelson goes to Africa and says the way that you folks get out of poverty is by paying a full tithing to this church that already has $250 billion.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
That's disgusting to me. Absolutely
Yeah.
disgusting. How I said this to my therapist, how do you lay your head down at night? Like, they must be aware. They must know. Like, if I can see it, they're in it. They're the leadership. They're the ones that make decisions. How do you see struggles of a group of people and tell them, pay us that 10%? Do they really believe that God is going to change their lives? Or is it that they're so focused on the money that is, I don't know. From a moral, I say it, they're morally bankrupt. That's like, for people to be able to sit and see poverty in the way that they must see it as they go around, encourage people. We know there are quotes around pay your tithing before you buy your food. I can't remember the exact quote. How do they sleep at night?
Really?
I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Really, it's so true. And Aaron Lurie could speak to this, but the poverty in Haiti, to have missionaries and people go down there and to see the type of poverty, and in Africa, and to still be able to stand in front of the congregation and say, make sure you guys are paying your tithing, it's asinine. I mean, how? Like you said, how do you sleep at night? How do you get on a private plane or fly first class and go to these countries and know that most of these children and parents are being baptized because it might be the only nice building that has running water and AC, right? And know that that's why, but it doesn't even matter. You're like, I don't even care why you're joining. Just want to be able to say next April that our numbers are up. So come to the font on Saturday. I just.
And it's crazy too, because like they also, not only do they have the money, but they have the power and influence to be able to change it. So it's not just like handing over money. It's like you have all these people like who are in different places in the United States, right? Like in the legislation and all this stuff. And you're so clouded by, I don't know, the religion and like your viewpoints of it that you don't care. Like, because even when you hear Black people speak who get into higher positions within the church, it's like they're regurgitating everything these people are saying. I'm like, what? Like, is that really what you feel? Like, I've never talked to Black people who are Mormons who talk like this and who like would agree with this. So even then, you just are part of the machine.
Sad.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it looks like there are a few folks that would love to call in. If we can open up the phone lines, this essentially, there's so much more to present on this topic. Believe me, perhaps we may do another session. But it would be great to hear from the audience if there are questions.
Black Priesthood, we've got 3 people in the queue. First up is Laura. So we already have 3 people, so I'm just announcing that's how many people will be going through. So if you haven't called in already, please don't do so now. Save that call for Friday night on Mormonism After Dark. But here's Laura on the screen, Black Priesthood.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Laura. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Laura.
Or we can't hear you, so you might either be muted on your side or need to go out of the studio and come back in. So I'm going to take you off and we'll go to the next person and we'll try again.
Hello, Ria. Welcome.
How are you doing, guys?
Hello, hello.
Good, thank you.
Forgive me, I'm African. My accent will sound weird, okay?
Doesn't sound weird at all.
All right, thank you. I just want to make a few comments regarding on the church in Africa. I'm African. I travel Europe, Africa, everywhere. Right now, I'm in Dallas, Texas. So this is what happens in Africa. Somebody said, why the younger ones are getting baptized without their parents. People must know. Congo, Nigeria, those countries, they're like war zone countries. Even right now, there's war going on. I come from Zambia, the southern part of Africa. Why Namibia is not growing? Why Botswana is not growing? Those are stable countries. Congo, they always cross the border to come in my country to buy food almost every day. We have the biggest refugee camp in my country right now for people from DRC. So those children getting baptized, they do get baptized because the church would come in the name of, it's from America, we'll give you this, we'll give you that to your children. And then their parents would send their children and say, go join, get baptized, kind of like giving hope to that family. You know what I mean? It's the poverty level. We have lawyers, pilots in our country. None of those people join the church. From my experience, I'm a returned missionary. I served in South Africa. South Africa is one of the richest countries too, but you don't see those baptisms. It's just the numbers.
Wow.
And then regarding BYU pathway, that's another huge like gamble the church has brought. In my hometown, the younger ones are promised, do pathway, will bring American companies in. You will work in those companies. I hear this every day. So the church in Africa is not growing. I'm Zambian. I'm African. I'm within the African continent. When you see those baptisms, they are promised something. When you join the church as a recent convert, where I come from, the church would pay for your house rent. I don't know how you call that in America. They'll pay for you for 6 months.
Wow.
Once that is done, people disappear. They don't come back.
Wow.
I've been a member, I think, for more than 20 years. The same people that I knew when I joined, they don't come anymore. I'm one of the first person, even like when I go to church, people don't even know me anymore because people come and go. That's how the church is in Africa. It's not about the gospel growing. No. Whenever I open the news, I like the platform. I'm always watching you guys reading the comments. None of that happens where I come from. I don't know where the church gets the numbers from. I don't know.
Wow.
That's like according to my own opinion. There's nothing like baptisms like that. Talk of Nigeria, Mali going up. Like I said, those are war countries. The church will grow. Another example I'll give you is Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, they dedicated a temple recent. Why? Because I think when Robert Mugabe, their president, kicked out the whites, the economy went down. The church had programs whereby they were giving families bags of rice, food, and everything. It grew. That's how the temple was built in Zimbabwe. How come we don't have a temple in my country? Yeah, there are so many questions regarding Africa. I don't believe anything they report that comes from Africa
Thank you.
now.
Thank you so much, Ria.
Wow.
It's great to share, provide some sunlight on the claims of the church's growth metrics in Africa. This is good. Thank you, Ria.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll be watching.
Thank you.
Next, do we still have the
Can you hang on just a
lines?
second, Black Priesthood? I just want to comment. That's astonishing, Maria, because the church has been relying so much on these numbers to buttress their growth claims.
Yeah.
And they would have to be incredible in Africa to make up for everybody else who's, jumping ship everywhere else. But when I joined the church back in 1978, the late 70s especially, maybe the early 80s too, South America was the hot spot. That's where all the baptisms were occurring. The Lamanite blood was receiving the gospel of Jesus Christ. Missionaries were reported to be baptizing 1,000 people on their missions. It was going great guns. It was the only reason I was sad I got called to Japan and not to South America. But then later on, much later on, we all understand now that it's a matter of history that those were manufactured numbers. They were baseball baptisms. They were kiddie baptisms. The mission presidents were putting the screws to the missionaries to give the mission presidents the numbers they need to advance up the ecclesiastical ladder in the Mormon church. And so the missionaries responded by coming up with new and creative ways. And I'm wondering, are we seeing the same thing today in Africa that we were seeing in the 70s in South America?
It sounds like pattern recognition, because also in Atlanta, they used to also help pay for people's rent for Black people specifically to get them in the church. So it seems like this is like what they do. They go to impoverished places of people who desperately need help. And instead of providing like actual assistance, they baptize you, say we'll pay this for a certain amount of time, and then you never see those people ever again. Like when I was in Atlanta, there was in the Atlanta ward, there was over 1,000 members on record. You know how many showed up to church? Maybe 30 came to church.
Wow.
Yeah.
Therapy pause.
Hi.
Hello.
I don't have a specific question, but a thought. And I wondered so when I was thinking about the aid over there and how they promise, I have no doubt they promise rent and other financial help to people initially. I'm wondering if we hear very often, if anyone knows, from the leaders and members over there on the continuation of that. I think, in my opinion, I think the church has a responsibility to recognize that it plays a political role, even though it wants to be apolitical. And the result of, a lot of the voting right now has done away with USAID. And that is affecting maternal health. It's affecting disease spread. Ebola is so bad there right now. I haven't really been able to find anything about the church's support. I know they're not going to come out and take a political stance, but I was just wondering And I'm wondering really if we hear any feedback from all those wards that have been developed of, you know, maybe 1,000 people, but only 30 members attending. Does anybody know?
Well, I think we're not even supposed to know about those wards.
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't.
Yeah.
And it probably wouldn't be several years before the result of what is happening now becomes clear and obvious. I think probably this is the thing with Africans when well, that is such broad and generalized. A lot of church members in Africa are not going to take the additional burden or tax of formally resigning. You know, they join, and if it doesn't work for them, they just migrate to some other religion. They don't and the church knows this. And so until you formally resign, they will continue to count you in the records until you're 110. But if you don't formally resign, so even people that have become disenchanted, disaffected, and with the church and walked away are still counted as members. Those kids that you see in those images, as they grow up, if they find another path, they will still be counted as members of the church. But I don't know the exact results of, you know, the impact of whatever humanitarian efforts the church has going on in Africa.
I wonder
But
about the
also,
leaders over there, you know, like it seems like the leaders would reach out because they might not have left, like the burden might be on them, you know, the bishops and stake
Yeah.
presidents over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, I mean, I would hope that people are reaching out to them instead of waiting for them.
but also usually when the leaders in Africa or other parts of the world, it's usually a missionary. It's not usually somebody local who is the bishop or stake president. It's usually the missionaries, white missionaries who are leading these efforts. So they don't usually have, I feel like, good insight into what the people are actually struggling with. And even if they do have that insight, it's more of a, like, kind of, that's your problem. I'm only here for a couple years and whatnot, and we're already helping you with this. Like, I think the view of humanitarian, at least when I was a missionary, to see the real views of how members view humanitarian aid was pretty despicable, right? Like, when I was a missionary, there were people, because they used to baptize, pay for food and their housing, they were like, oh, there's not going to be any more free handouts, so make sure everybody know that you're talking to knows that. Like, it's a pretty gross way to view just people in general. And a lot of my companions were very racist. They would say things like, I can't believe that this single mom can afford to get her hair done, but she can't afford to, like, not work on Sunday, and can't afford to, like, feed her children. Like, just very racist views of why people are in this place, and not understanding Black culture at all, and not understanding that she probably did her own hair or traded with somebody to get that hair. Who cares? Like, it's none of our business, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if we could have, like, would you like to see general authorities be the same, like, come from the same region or the same ethnicity as the countries they oversee?
I'd like for
Especially,
them I would just like for the leaders of the church to be honest.
yeah.
And then we can start talking about regions, honestly. Because what I've seen is the higher you go up, the more you have to conform. And so it doesn't matter. I mean, I had a friend send me a text a few conferences ago, and she's like, oh my goodness, you know, they have a Black woman giving the opening prayer or whatever. It's so great to see. I'm like, it's 2024. This is what we're talking about right now. You know, we've talked about tokenism a lot, and I think that that's all that is. I would be curious to know what happens leadership wise locally, because I know here in the States, the wards are kind of on their own, right? They have their own tithing. I didn't know that until, a few years ago. I found out that when you tithe, you can put local, but if you put it in tithing, it goes straight to Salt Lake. Fasting stays within the local ward. And so I'm curious to know, in these very impoverished areas, what the church does once that 6 months is up, for example. Are they like, you guys have to fend for yourself? Is the tithing? I mean, I'm curious how much Salt Lake helps to get things going, because they're not going to stay there. They're just
Yeah.
not going to stay.
Well, at least in Atlanta, it was the missionary's job to schedule an appointment with these people who were coming just to get help, assistance from the church. We had to find them, schedule an appointment with the bishop for him to tell them that they're no longer going to receive help, but that he could help them spiritually.
Yeah.
Other comments? Thank you so much.
Thank
Other
you.
comments? Is there any other question? RFM, any other question in the queue? I think there was somebody. Oh yeah, Laura.
We'll see if Laura can make it through. Laura, can you hear us, and can we hear you?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my raspy voice. Thank you for having me on. Thank you guys for doing this tonight. It just seems like a lot of opening old and current wounds. I don't know. I'm basically white. I don't know that I would have been able to do that with just stuff in my own life. So thank you for doing that. I hope you never feel like it's expected, but not that, because their expectations are going to conform to them anyway. But I just know with me, sometimes pressure can, but thank you guys so much. And I'm so sorry. That's all I really have to say. I'm just really sorry. And thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so
Right.
much, Laura, for calling and making that expression. We'll see you Friday, hopefully. Okay.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Good night.
Bye. Thanks, Laura.
Do you want to close us
So-
out here, High Priesthood?
Yeah.
I thought I was
Let's.
going to co-host now.
What?
I was going to co-host now. I was.
Oh,
gonna
now you're going to. Okay,
Yeah.
everybody. Summer's going to leave.
Go ahead, Summer Rain. Your turn.
Really quickly, just Raya was in earlier, and she had so many interesting experiences that I would at least like to get her contact info.
Yes.
And so, Raya, if you're out there, please either in the live chat or find me on Facebook and send me a message there if you want to be more confidential. But I would love some contact info to follow up on some of the things you shared tonight.
That would be great.
Raya, you're amazing.
So let's each take a minute, if that's too long, and give our closing statement, starting with Mariama.
Just thinking that these conversations are really important and that we need to keep having them. I'm certainly going to keep speaking up. I've got TikTok and Instagram that I do share a lot of this on.
Oh,
And
Mariama, I'm interrupting now. It's it's what I'm known for. But would you please let the audience know what your TikTok is, where they can find you? Same for everybody else as they're closing out. Sure. Please plug whatever you've got.
Thank you. Sure. It's Unravel with Mariama. On both TikTok and Instagram, same handle. And yes, they're not going to shut me up. No one will. I'm going to continue speaking up because one, I think it's really important to talk about it, and two, hopefully it helps anybody else, particularly Black members or those who may be considering joining the LDS Church, that they need to be aware. I think the foundational thing for me is give people information and then allow them to make that informed decision. If people still choose to join the church, fine. But I think people need to know and be aware of what they're getting into, and that's kind of one of the primary purposes of that. So, but thank you for having me on today. It's been so many feelings and thoughts that have gone through as I've listened as well to everybody, and thank you for all of your everything that's been shared. It's painful, it is, but needs to be instead. At least we need to continue speaking about it.
Thank you, Marina. Tara, please, if you would.
Yeah. So you can find me at Pouty Mouth Podcast. I have a podcast where I talk sometimes about Mormonism and things, and that's on TikTok and on Instagram. And yeah, I think just closing thoughts overall, I think in general, it's not our job to teach the church how to treat people. And so, like Mariama said, if people still want to join, like that's absolutely their choice. Whether they want to do that or not, they should be able to, have informed consent to be able to do that. And I think that the church, there's plenty of education that they can do. All of us, after leaving Mormonism and within Mormonism, have had to educate ourselves on things, and just like we've had to do that, they can do that themselves. Nobody's asking for white people to feel bad for Black people. Like, we are strong people and we deal with this every day. We're just asking for you to educate yourself and to just think about others. That's it.
Somebody was asking if you said potty mouth or pouty mouth.
Pouty, Pouty.
Right, love it. Cool.
Thank you, Tara.
Yeah.
And Lori, please, closing thoughts, comments, and your TikTok or whichever your social platform that you're active.
Okay, finally, my TikTok is AnnLaurieC. And I feel emboldened to actually start speaking about this because at first, a lot of people did ask me to share a story time, and I was like, no, I don't want to be the face of this because I know that it would greatly embarrass a lot of people that I love, and that I know that my small video got on a lot of messages, and they're talking about, is this Lori? And I didn't want that. But I also feel that it is my job, because I know so much, to educate Haitians like me or Black people like me to not join the church. I know that I don't want to it's not my job. I just feel like I cannot leave this and conversation and not do anything about it. I just feel like I'm angry. I forgot about a lot of this. Like I said, it was just a random TikTok. So random. I didn't even think anyone was gonna see it because I'm literally just doing anything on TikTok, But at the same time, it's like, I need to talk because I know I'm passionate. And if people saw it and asked me, it's for a reason. So I'm gonna keep speaking. So that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne Lori. Summer Rain, closing thoughts, and where can people find your content?
So I don't have social media stuff. I like to occasionally team up with RFM and burn the institution down on an episode, and then I go off into my world. So I don't have TikTok or anything like that, but I did want to just say thank you to these amazing women for coming out. We all have different experiences within Mormonism. All of us on the all of us, including you, RFM, and you, Bill, and Black Priesthood. And then within that context, as a Black member, we have experiences. And then within that context, as a woman, we have different experiences. And I was just thinking, about privilege and just very grateful for you ladies for speaking out in the forums that you're speaking out in. And I know how you feel, Anne Lori, where you're just like Lori, where you're just want to just go out there and let everyone know. And so just do what makes you feel comfortable, because there are a lot of us out here that are talking. And so don't feel like you have to put all of that on yourself. But I just want to say thank you guys for taking the time. The LDS community is the way it is because of the community, right? That's why a lot of people join, is for the community. And it's just so important to know that there's a community outside of that. So if you lose friends, family, Relief Society, whatever, you know that there are people that are experiencing the same thing you experience. And so I want to thank Bill at RFM again for the platform, so that people can see that there is communities within communities within communities, and that we are here. And Black Priesthood, you are amazing as always. Thank you so much. I don't appreciate Trevor continually saying Black Priesthood's amazing. Thank you so much. We all know that, but there are other people here too. So Trevor, thank you. That's all I have to say. So I kept seeing Trevor saying, "Oh, have him on." Anyway.
You just said, "Great job, everyone."
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, no, thank you guys so much. Really, thank you guys so much. I know we've run kind of late, but I really, really appreciate all of you. And I appreciate you, RFM and Bill, for constantly being like, let me go ahead and give you a platform. I didn't walk in your experience, but I want to make sure people hear it. So thank you guys so much.
Well, it's nowhere near as late for me as it is for Mariama. So thank you, Mariama. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Summer, Rain, and Black Priesthood for bringing up this idea and sharing it and shepherding it through. All right. So any other comment, Bill, if you want to say anything, and then Black Priesthood, you want to take us out after Bill?
Yeah, I'll just be really quick. We didn't get into it tonight, but one of the things that was suggested that we would talk about tonight is the church needing to do an apology at some point. And people think like, oh, an apology only serves one purpose. And I just want to really quickly say, the church giving an apology would do a whole host of things. It tells believers that authority has limits. It acknowledges that some critics were identifying real problems. It validates those who experienced harm. It makes reconciliation possible. It sets a permanent line in the sand, a marker in reality, when we know like what's behind us was wrong, and going forward, we can set the record straight. It gives future leaders permission to be honest and apologize for other things when it's necessary to reconcile and to make amends and to reconnect with people. It models psychological maturity. It separates the institution from its mistakes. Right now, the mistake and the institution are the same thing. It separates those, and it changes the incentives of the culture. So it shifts the norm from protecting the institution at all cost to protecting reality, even when that reality is uncomfortable. It restores moral credibility. I think that might be the last one. No, one more. And it's a commitment to a different future. And so LDS Church, you apologizing for having done what you've done here and in other things too, but let's start here. It accomplishes so much at setting out a new future with a new church and a new group of people who don't have to account for that in the same way ever again. And so I just wanted to make mention of that.
Awesome.
Very good. Last word goes to the host.
Thank you, Bill. I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Mariama. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Anne Laurie. Thank you, Summer Rain. Thank you for giving us the opportunity, Bill, RFM, to present our lived experience in Mormonism, how it impacted our lives. I feel a deep sense of gratitude and love for that young man that joined Mormonism with complete trust, only to have that be dashed and betrayed because the church did not trust me enough to tell me the truth. I feel deeply saddened. I felt so hurt to have found that out from a stranger in Los Angeles that we were teaching. I would have walked away from this church a long time ago if I had this kind of a support framework and a place to talk about these issues and how it impacted my life. None of my leadership, none of the mission president didn't want to discuss it. The bishops, the stake presidents in all of the wards in all of these years did not want to or know how to approach this. this is why trained ecclesiastical leaders is so important. None of them, the leaders, at least in my experience, had the ability to have a very difficult conversation. And so I wandered in the desert of Mormonism for a long time, heartbroken and dejected, and having to accept that, for me, I think what W.E.B. Du Bois calls the double consciousness. I could not reconcile these two, being Black in Mormonism, because it was so devastating. So I'm hoping that other Black and African American and African members who find, or anybody else that finds this video, that it is helpful, please reach out to Bill and RFM. They know how to reach any of us if you just want to have a conversation about how, or your struggles and journey in Mormonism. Please find somebody to talk to. But in my heart, I really wish that I had this, because it would have helped me out a lot. I want to thank Bill and RFM for providing us this platform to have this conversation. I hope that this is beneficial to all the Black Mormons out there who may be struggling, and anybody else who is struggling with this issue. Thank you so much.